Hello everyone, I welcome to another video by Legacy IAS on safe and legal abortion in India. Recently, the Supreme Court has come up with a judgment talking about this particular issue. Now, Supreme Court has really come out with a very landmark and monumental judgment on this particular decision, on this particular issue. So, before we get on to what this judgment is, let us look upon what is the existing situation here, what is the issue that is what was basically cropping up, which has led to the Supreme Court come up with such a decision. Now, as far as the status quo was concerned till recently, according to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971, okay, unmarried women who were pregnant between 20 to 24 weeks of pregnancy after consensual sex were prohibited from undergoing abortion legally. All right. Now, a couple of words that we have to make a note here. First is unmarried. Okay. Unmarried women, especially after consensual sex, who get pregnant during this time period of 20 to 24 weeks, they are particularly prohibited from having abortion legally. Now, problems with this particular act were, firstly, it extended only to the married women, okay, which means that the act continued to follow the patriarchal principles as to what category and kind of people can basically have permissible sex. All right. It also continued with the stereotype and with the notion that only married women are basically entitled to indulge in sexual intercourse. Fundamental problems which are problematic in terms of the rationale behind this particular law. More so, Rule 3B of this particular act, which talked about which categories or what were the beneficiaries of people who were eligible for abortion during this time frame. Basically, if you have been having either consensual sex or if you have been forced as well in having this sex and also getting pregnant, if you have been survivors of rape or you are minors or women basically who during this time whose marital status has been changed during pregnancy. So, if you have been survivors of either rape or you are minors, but during your pregnancy, your marital status is changed, or you are mentally unwell, or your fetus has come up with a malfunction. If any of these categories are present, then and only then you are allowed to terminate your pregnancy according to Rule 3B of this particular act. So basically, you also, if additionally you have consensual sex, then pregnancy or rather abortion after 20th week is not permissible. So this is a fundamental problem in terms of the categorization of women, in terms of the special treatment that is being given to some women, married, unmarried, the weeks in which we are talking about, and the nature of the intercourse that is in question. In this background, Supreme Court came up with their landmark judgment, according to which all women, regardless of their marital status, are entitled to these benefits, which allows them to have safe and legal abortion up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. So it is not a discrimination that they are making, an artificial distinction that they are making between married women and single women, that it is applicable for married and not to single. If it is a health concern or any other medical requirement, then it should be applicable to both. Just because of marital status, you cannot have this kind of discrimination according to the Supreme Court. So this kind of distinction is a rather narrow interpretation of this entire issue of abortion. What the Supreme Court is trying to prove here or trying to communicate here is that according to Article 21 of the Constitution, the rights of reproductive autonomy, dignity, and privacy of an unmarried woman is basically her choice, whether the choice to bear a child or not bear a child, and that does not change whether or not that person is married. So the constitution, or rather the judiciary here, is recognizing this particular right of autonomy, reproductive autonomy, dignity, and privacy. It says that this particular right of dignity is trying to ensure or trying to give or treat women as a self governing entity where that individual pursues or rather has a choice to make. Okay, the dignity comes from merely being a human, where she, or rather in this case in a broad sense it means all humans, but in this issue particularly it means that, or it recognizes that women are self-defining and self-determining. Okay, this reproductive autonomy that is there, that a woman enjoys, is something where she should be having the right to choose whether to continue having this baby or not, based on not any pressure or external influence, but purely based upon her individual choice, respecting the right of dignity and privacy of the woman, according to Article 21. All right. This is almost like a bodily autonomy of the women, of the pregnant women. In fact, judiciary went on to recognize the fact that unwanted pregnancies have a big effect on not just a woman's body but also on her mental state, which is doing much greater damage to that particular individual. All right, so this kind of a situation is something that is completely stated as a rationale behind the kind of decision or judgment the Supreme Court is making. The Supreme Court recognizes the fact that a lot of time, abortion takes place because of the complicated life circumstances that a woman goes through, and not necessarily because of any other reason. So just recognizing and respecting that choice is essential. There is a very interesting and a very important element that was added in the Supreme Court judgment. The issue was on marital rape. The issue was about the fact that, firstly, it recognized that Supreme Court recognized that marital rape does exist. Okay, it dismissed the fact that only strangers are the one who can basically create some kind of an issue, or rather force a woman to have this intercourse. Marital rape did exist, and solely making it a narrow definition, only basing it upon strangers, is something that should be ruled out. It having a child based on, or having a child with someone who already inflicts a lot of mental and physical harm upon that woman is absolutely unacceptable, and a woman should not be compelled to do that. Already, because of marital rape, she's having a child and she's having to stay with that person. There is a very important element which was also removed as far as this issue was concerned, that the woman who has suffered from this kind of a marital rape issue need not file an FIR. Okay, it can keep that entire aspect close and private to herself, and in a very dignified manner this act of abortion can be undertaken. This kind of recognition that women can basically become pregnant because of non-consensual sexual intercourse, even after marriage, even by her husband, is very, very important. It is a recognition that intimate partner violence does exist, and you just need not have to depend upon a stranger, or rather a stranger is not the only reason why marital rape can exist. So this recognition, adding this angle to the whole ambit of abortion, was something again very, very monumental. A further directive has been mentioned by the Supreme Court with regards to contraceptive, is to ensure both its availability and its affordability, so that families can plan their individuals or couples can plan their families much well. There should not be any discrimination on providing these contraceptives by the medical facilities or the RMPs, and it should be done equally without any discrimination of any identity, any social or economic factors involved. So this again was an important preventive measure. Abortion is almost like something you're doing after you have conceived or you have become pregnant. But if you take care of contraceptives very well, half of the trouble gets avoided. So, encouraging the use of contraceptive was also mentioned in this particular decision. Overall, if we look at how this particular law on abortion has come about, what is very important is that Supreme Court says that all of these issues become acceptable if that person is married. So, removing that categorization of whether an individual is married or not, okay, marriage should not be treated as a precondition to undertake any such activities. It is also very important that the way in which our society is changing, our law also needs to be evolving. Okay, this decisional autonomy, okay, is based upon the fact that a woman, if she wants to pursue her education, follow her career, and even do something that supports her mental well-being, she should not only be supported but also should be encouraged. And this choice of having an abortion or not falls within this broad ambit of a woman choosing to make these decisions. All right. So, in this regard, this transformative constitutionalism is even promoting as well as, kind of engendering some kind of this societal change that we're looking at. The society is basically going through a lot of these changes, and our laws should also be moving accordingly. So, the way in which we are gradually progressing towards a much more gender equal society, our rules, including the MTP Act and the rules, should also be becoming much more dynamic. So, the rationale behind the judgment is equally important along with what the Supreme Court is mentioning. So, Supreme Court's thoughts on or decisions on abortion, on marital rape, as well as directions on contraceptives is something which is very, very monumental and landmark in this particular judgment. So, I hope you have understood the entire issue. If you have, let me know by liking the video, share it with those who don't know about it yet, and subscribe for more such Legacy IAS videos. Thank you so much.